What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over that Insider Gaming article. It's a rumor of the Respawn first-person shooter Star Wars game. A lot to go over, but generally, I'm very excited about the potential. If it is real, it seems like it's real. Tom Henderson is one of, if not the best ones out there, and we know they're doing something first-person shooter Star Wars related, right? It's kind of just connecting the dots as to what's the what's the specific focus of it, right? Which are the characters, as you can see behind me, right? So Mandalorian based, and I'm pretty into it. I'm definitely into it. So let's read over some of the highlights of the article, what kind of game this is, and then we'll go over what I think about it. So first it says, according to sources, the game will see the players take control of a Mandalorian bounty hunter, unclear who, set during the time when the Galactic Empire is dominating across the galaxy. It's your job as a bounty hunter to capture bounties, dead or alive, for cash rewards. The game's high mobility has been made possible, storytelling-wise, thanks to their jetpack, which allows the player to perform horizontal dashing, vertical jumping, boost sliding, somewhat similar to sliding down hills in Apex Legends, and more. Sources describe the game as very fast-paced, and as such will reward players who play in this style. For example, the player's health will mainly regenerate based on successful kills. As to be expected, playing as a Mandalorian bounty hunter gives the player a wide variety of weapons and gadgets, including a wrist rocket, grapple hook, a visor for tagging enemies and bounties, and more. It's understood that the game will not be open world and have linear levels taking place on a variety of different planets. While it's unclear when the game will be released, it's said we're still a year or two away at the very least. It's unclear if the game will have multiplayer or not. And I do want to start kind of at the end there because it seems to contradict the beginning, although not entirely, or at least not entirely sure, right? But in the beginning of this article, they say that it's in the early stages of development. Now, when I first see that, or I hear that just in general, right, I think like 3, 4, 5 years out, because if you're in early development, I mean, there's different phases of development, right? So if you're like in full production and you're in the early stages of that, yeah, it actually could be 2 years and your game could come out. That's totally possible. If you're in the early stages of like planning the game, you know what I mean? Then it's like 4 years, 5 years, 6. It could be, forever basically at that point. So I just, maybe the wording or, it's maybe my assumption of which part of development they're talking about. 1 to 2 years, not all that far. In fact, we would maybe get this game, by the sound of it, the odds would be we'd get this game maybe before the third game in the Jedi trilogy, with Cal. So that's exciting. Honestly, the type of game that is exciting. I know first-person shooters aren't like, and honestly, they're not even my main cup of tea, right? I'm kind of like the third-person, action-adventure, Assassin's Creed 2, Uncharted, like that kind of, I guess, Sly Cooper, if you go back enough, right? Like, those are kind of my games. At the same time, I play a very big variety in genres of games. And look, here, I mean, the thing is, we knew it was going to be this, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, you could hear a Mandalorian game and you could want it to be something else, but like, we knew it was going to be like a first-person shooter. And look, I mean, ultimately, like, I'm not an Apex player, but Titanfall, I mean, come on, right? Who's played Titanfall? Who's seen Titanfall? Titanfall, very good, very actiony, very, mobile, kind of inspired, right? So I think it's honestly a match made in heaven. And, we've heard rumors of a Mando type game, and, even like, well, Star Wars Outlaws, right, is more like bounty hunting, like scoundrel type thing. The Amy Hennig canceled Star Wars game was going to be that kind of bounty hunter, Nathan Drake-like person. So there's clearly something to this like genre, right, of Star Wars, but I'm into it. I think, honestly, it's a pretty solid idea, and just the idea of that mobility and just, the jetpacks and just the quickness that you can possibly do, I'm in. And if you use kind of what they have built from Titanfall, specifically Titanfall, and you keep going with it into this game, I think it's going to go well. So, and you know what? Ultimately, I do say this like with respect, right? Because again, I understand not everything's everybody's cup of tea. The good news, or the hopeful thing, is hopefully there's just so many Star Wars games coming, and it's not necessarily like quantity over quality, but you're giving so many developers chances, and sometimes even developers have multiple chances, right? That you're gonna get a different game kind of for different situations. You know what I mean? Like I go to Marvel with even like Midnight Suns. That game is not for everybody. I actually really loved it because I can play those type of games, and I do like them. But it's not for everybody, right? But it exists. It's out there if you don't want to play it. There's Guardians of the Galaxy, right? There's Marvel's Avengers if you want to go that way. There's just different types. So for Star Wars, yeah, there's bound to be, if you allow all these companies to make games, and there's 6 Star Wars games in the next 2-3 years, yeah, you're bound to have 1 or 2 of them kind of take a little detour. Now, honestly, a first-person shooter is not a big detour, right? Like, if you're doing, like, a card, like a Gwent-style game, that would be a detour, right? But honestly, like, Star Wars Outlaws, this game, the Jedi games, right? Like, I think they're kind of made with a very wide range of audience, in mind. A first-person shooter, one of, if maybe not the most popular genres. It may not be for everybody, but it's definitely for a lot of people. So I'm for it. I'm sure a lot of people are for it. And now we just have to sit back and wait. And like I said, the biggest thing to me is just the wording of, is it early in like planning? Because then it's like 4 or 5 years. If it's early in full production and they're already going in on it, then yeah, you might actually get this 2 years, might come before the next console, might come before the third Jedi game, and that would seem likely, to me. So hopefully you don't have to wait, too much longer. Let me know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.